You might be missing the chance to build something real with that younger woman, the one who's clearly into you, and not even realize it. You think you're doing everything right, but it's precisely those seemingly harmless habits that are slowly pushing you out of the game. And the worst part, they don't cause a dramatic crash. They quietly erode her attraction until one day, her interest just vanishes, with no warning, no explanation. You know that moment when everything seemed promising, but suddenly she's taking longer to reply, becoming distant, or just looking bored around you. That's not bad luck, and it's not because young women only want younger guys. More often than not, it's the man himself who's unknowingly sabotaging his chances, acting like a father, a fan, or a wise old sage, and forgetting to simply be a man. A whole man, with presence, posture, and magnetism. And this is where Stoicism comes in like a sharp blade, cutting through the illusions and revealing what actually matters. Maturity should be your advantage. And it is if you know how to use it. But if you behave like most men, trying to please, control, overcompensate, or play the modern cool guy, you'll fall into predictable traps and lose out on opportunities that only your age could bring you. It's time to flip the script, not with tricks, but with awareness. Not by becoming someone else, but by letting go of what weakens you. This video will break down, with clarity and brutal honesty, the 5 unattractive habits that drive younger women away from older men. More importantly, it will show you how to become the kind of man they respect and desire, effortlessly. Because here's the simple truth. Attraction isn't about age, it's about energy. And once you master these principles, your age becomes a weapon, not a weakness. 1. The invisible pedestal, when you lower yourself and lose without knowing it. There's one mistake older men make more often than they realize, putting younger women on a pedestal. Not out of admiration, but out of hidden insecurity. He sees youth as superiority, beauty as rarity, and her attention as something he must constantly earn. This imbalance is subtle at first, but it slowly destroys respect. Because where there is worship, there's no space for authentic masculine energy. And trust me, she feels it, not through what you say, but through how you carry yourself. Every gesture, every over-the-top compliment, every "you're way too perfect for me" reveals something deeper. Fear of rejection disguised as romance. And a smart woman, especially one who's emotionally seasoned, picks up on that instantly. Deep down, she wants admiration, not idolization. She wants to be desired, not deified. Because a pedestal doesn't seduce, it isolates. This behavior is rooted in an intense need for validation that screams from the background. When a man believes he has to earn her presence, he shrinks inside. He gives up leadership for submission. He compromises where he shouldn't. Worst of all, he starts measuring everything he does by her reactions, as if his worth depends on her mood. That's not love. That's emotional dependency, and it doesn't pair well with mature masculinity. A relationship flows much better when he sees her as an equal. When he's not impressed by her age, her status, or how many followers she has on Instagram. Because when a man truly knows himself, he's not dazzled, he's grounded. And that groundedness is what creates real attraction. It's not about feeling superior, it's about not feeling inferior. That's where self-respect comes in, the kind that keeps both people grounded, without needing pedestals or golden carpets. And the beautiful side effect? She opens up, she relaxes, because women only surrender where they feel safe. And safety isn't control, it's emotional stability. A man who respects himself naturally earns respect. He doesn't raise his voice. His eyes speak louder than his words. And that's what activates the deeper codes of female attraction, the ones rooted in presence, energy, and the quiet confidence of being unapologetically himself. Here's the truth. When you put someone on a pedestal, you're already kneeling on the inside. And a man who kneels inside will never be passionately desired. He might be accepted out of convenience, but not chosen with fire. Real love happens between two whole individuals who meet face to face, not from above or below. A mature relationship isn't a hierarchy, it's a partnership. One that demands true masculine initiative, especially when it comes to self-positioning. So next time you catch yourself overdoing it, asking, "Does she really like me?" or acting like you won the lottery just by being with her, stop. Take a breath and ask yourself, am I showing up as a man or as a fan? That one question alone reveals the path forward. But what comes next? That's going to require you to see yourself with new eyes. 2. The weight of age is only in your head, turning insecurity into real advantage. The greatest prison for an older man, when it comes to attraction, often isn't his gray hair, the signs of age, or the weight he's gained. It's in his mind. That quiet fear of no longer being desired, of seeming too old for her, of losing space to younger guys. But here's the raw truth. Age is only a problem if you believe it is. That limiting belief creates a version of you that lives in the shadow of what you could be. That fear is nothing more than insecurity in disguise. The man isn't really afraid of his age. He's afraid of what he thinks it represents. Being at a disadvantage, losing value, being out of sync with today's world. But that's all illusion. Youth has fire. Maturity has direction. While younger guys are still figuring out who they are, a grounded older man already knows what he wants, how to carry himself, and what he's worth. And for an emotionally intelligent woman, that's deeply attractive. The issue shows up when he shrinks himself. When the moment he enters a dynamic with a younger woman, he's already apologizing for his age. Maybe not with words, but with gestures soaked in emotional neediness. He tries to compensate with gifts, over-the-top gestures, self-deprecating jokes, all revealing a desperate need for validation. And again, the moment a man feels the need to justify his existence, he's already giving away his power. Age, in truth, should be your greatest asset. Think about it. It brings emotional stability, focus, and a clear sense of priority, things younger men are still stumbling to find. A man who's lived long enough to understand that time is his most valuable currency becomes magnetic. He chooses more intentionally. He has filters. He knows how to say no. And that's what activates the deeper codes of female attraction, rooted in safety, not just surface-level charm. Need a practical fix for that fear? Shift your focus. Stop obsessing over what you've lost, and start honoring what you've already built. Let your maturity speak in calm confidence, not in anxious overcompensation. Invest in your continuous development, physically, intellectually, emotionally. Men who keep their minds sharp and their bodies respected, not shredded, just well-kept, radiate a presence. And presence matters more than appearance. Here's another powerful mindset shift. Don't ask for permission to feel attractive. Don't wait for her gaze to feel worthy. Own that energy from the inside. Real attraction begins with inner conviction. A man who values himself doesn't compete with younger guys. He observes them and quietly smiles, knowing he's already won battles they haven't even faced. That's proactive masculinity, acting from identity, not fear of loss. So the next time that thought creeps in, what if she thinks I'm too old? Answer it with something simple yet powerful. She'll think whatever I project. Your posture tells the story. And once you stop apologizing for living more, you'll start being respected for living better. 3. Acting like a father instead of a partner, the silent mistake she'll secretly resent. Some men think that being mature means taking care of everything. They pay for everything, comment on everything, supervise like they're her guardian, but don't realize that deep down, what they're projecting is emotional neediness dressed up as care. Younger women may admire responsibility, but they can't stand when it turns into control. That kills authentic masculine energy because the man stops being whole and becomes a provider desperate for approval. It's not protection. It's unconscious strategy for acceptance. And no one falls in love with a behavioral supervisor. The real issue isn't what he does, it's the energy behind it. He transmits a paternalistic vibe that blocks attraction. And that blockage is subtle but strong. The woman starts to feel like she's in a relationship where the man expects gratitude in return for his protection. This reveals a lingering emotional residue from the past, maybe from a relationship where he was cheated on, rejected, or never acknowledged. He transfers that pain, often unknowingly, by demanding obedience instead of connection. When she feels like he wants what's best for her more than she does, the magic dies. Why? Because that attitude is often a disguised plea for validation. It might look mature on the surface, but underneath, it's a fear of not being enough unless he's offering something in return. It's like he's saying, if I take really good care of her, maybe she'll stay. But that turns desire into duty. If he were more relaxed, more mysterious, less desperate to prove his worth, the game would change completely. She would feel his presence, not his weight. That's where real masculine proactivity comes in, not trying to fix everything, but knowing exactly when not to act. A man who positions himself without invading, who leads without commanding, who's present without suffocating. That kind of posture takes self-respect, the kind that refuses to play the romantic mentor or emotional savior. He doesn't place himself above or below. He's on equal ground, and that's what makes him attractive, because he doesn't need to justify himself. He doesn't act out of fear of rejection, but from clarity about who he is. That, more than any gift or protective gesture, is what ignites desire. There's a fine line between generosity and emotional dependency, between protecting and infantilizing. Older men must be especially aware of this, particularly when they use maturity as a shield to avoid rejection or justify controlling behavior. It's not about giving less, it's about giving right. And the right kind of giving flows from authenticity, not a secret manual on how to impress younger women. Want a good test? If she stopped taking initiative, showing interest, or even having fun around you, you might be acting more like a hyperlogical dad than a man who seduces. Because too much logic kills mystery, and mystery is a vital part of the female attraction code. The rest? We're just beginning to uncover it. 4. The know-it-all fatigue, when experience becomes arrogance and kills the spark. One of the most subtle and most damaging mistakes older men make is thinking that just because they've lived longer, they know everything. The intention might even be good, to guide, to protect, to share wisdom. But the tone often comes off like someone descending from Mount Olympus to give a lecture. And that pushes her away, because a younger woman doesn't want to be a student. She wants to be a partner. When the conversation turns into a class, the magic disappears. And what's left? A heavy silence full of boredom. That behavior is often rooted in emotional residue from the past, times when he wasn't heard, respected, or valued. Now he tries to compensate by becoming the voice of reason. But in practice, this over-rational approach chokes out the lightness of the relationship. Too many opinions, unsolicited advice, and lines like, "You'll understand one day," carry the bitter taste of excessive logic. And there's no attraction where the soul isn't having fun. Younger women do value intelligence, absolutely. But they can't stand when it comes without curiosity. Real connection is built on listening, learning from her, letting yourself be surprised. When a man locks himself in his own worldview, he blocks any possibility of shared growth. That reveals a lack of continuous development, the kind that keeps your mind open, your ego in check, and the emotional exchange alive. Because no matter how old you are, no one owns the truth. And here's the thing, a man who thinks he knows everything is usually terrible at emotional communication. He talks too much and listens too little. And that kills the female attraction codes, which are activated by one simple thing, making her feel seen. Listening with attention, with your eyes, body, and energy fully present, is way more seductive than quoting philosophers, authors, or old war stories from 1998. Real seduction happens in the silence between your words. This, I know better posture also masks a deeper insecurity. The fear of being rejected for being older makes him overcompensate with authority, as if the only way not to be dismissed is to assert dominance. But the more he tries to prove superiority, the more she senses his inner fragility. A secure man doesn't argue with youth, he dances with it. And in that dance, what matters isn't the technique, it's the connection. Want a practical tip? Instead of correcting her perspective, try asking, "What makes you see it that way?" And really listen. Replace the urge to teach with the desire to understand. Show genuine interest, not polished arrogance. That changes everything. Once she feels heard, she opens up. And once she opens up, the bond deepens. But if she feels corrected all the time, emotional distance becomes inevitable. So before you step into your next conversation with that, "Let me show her how the world really works" attitude, pause. Ask yourself, do I want to connect or just appear wise? Because if you constantly feel the need to prove your wisdom, what you're really doing is begging for validation. And trust me, to her, that's more exhausting than any bad pickup line. 5. Trying to be young again? The high price of faking who you're not. There's a mistake that borders on desperation. The older man trying to look, talk, and act younger just to impress. He changes his voice, forces slang that doesn't suit him, mimics the gestures of guys in their 20s, dresses like he's heading to a music festival, and deep down he feels like a fraud. All of this is the result of a deep insecurity in disguise. Because when a man doesn't accept himself, he puts on a costume. And this behavior never goes unnoticed. The woman might smile, play along, find it cute, but deep down she loses respect. What truly attracts a younger woman to an older man isn't him being young again. It's him being solid in his maturity. The charm is in the contrast, not in the attempt to hide it. Men who try too hard to be modern usually end up revealing the exact opposite, a strong fear of rejection. This attempt at age camouflage is often rooted in deep emotional residue from the past. Maybe he was judged, replaced, or mocked for not keeping up with the speed of youth, and now he tries to make up for it. But by doing that, he disconnects from his authentic masculinity. And once that's gone, his energy dissolves. He's no longer a presence, he becomes a performance. The way out? Simple, but not always easy. Own who you are. If he likes jazz, he doesn't need to pretend to love trap. If he prefers wine bars over clubs, he should say so without guilt. Authenticity is magnetic. A man who stands his ground, even when it's unpopular, radiates a silent power. He doesn't need her approval to feel complete. That's self-respect in action. And yes, that's sexy. What she's looking for is contrast, not a copy. She wants to learn from his life experience, not watch him play a cheap imitation of her world. When a man brings both the lightness of experience and the strength of someone who never bargains with his identity, she's drawn to him. And that kind of bond, it's rare, but it takes masculine proactivity, the courage to be yourself, even when blending in would be easier. Here's a practical exercise. Audit the ways you've been trying to fit in. What behaviors aren't really yours? What phrases do you only use around her? What places do you go to just so you don't seem boring? If that list is long, you might be paying a steep price just to hide your true power. And the truth is, female attraction codes are triggered by internal alignment, not external performance. At the end of the day, she doesn't want a clone of her friends. She wants a man who brings what they can't: maturity, direction, emotional stability, and clarity. But if you keep acting, you won't earn her respect or her desire. If you've made it this far, you already know. The thing standing between you and a relationship with a younger woman isn't your age. It's the habits that come from how you see yourself. The truth is, you can be wanted, respected, and chosen, but only once you stop trying to prove your worth and start living with self-respect, authenticity, and emotional clarity. Now tell me, how many times have you placed yourself beneath her, thinking that was humility? How often have you acted like someone you're not, just to avoid being rejected for who you really are? That's not charm, that's self-abandonment. And until you reclaim your own presence, you'll keep getting replaced by men with half your experience, but twice your confidence. So now I ask, are you going to keep living under the shadow of what if, or are you ready to take back control of your posture, your energy, and your identity as a man? Drop this in the comments. My age is my advantage. That'll be our secret handshake. If this video gave you something to think about, do this. Like it, share it with a brother who might be slipping into these same mistakes, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. There's a lot more raw, deep, and transformational content coming your way to help you become the man you were always meant to be.